Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. My name is Louis Mendes. Hope you guys are all well as we return from the international break with this week's big match preview to look ahead to Saturday's trip up to Huddersfield Town. Joining me to look ahead to that match, plus talk about much more as always. First up with a mouthful of Twiglets, top right is Benji Cloak. How you doing, Ben?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm glad to see the back of this week. Rubbish weather if you're a window cleaner, I'll tell you that, mate.
I'll take your word for it. You still haven't done mine for a while, actually. Having said that, also joining us on the bottom of the screen, a man who can't do anything useful for me is Tom Willing. How you doing, Tom?
I don't know what you mean by that. And to be fair, Benji messaged me about my windows today, so he's coming around next week, hopefully.
More excuses, I'm guessing. That's all I hear.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Good to have the pair of you with us on tonight's show. As I said, we'll look ahead to Saturday's trip up to Huddersfield Town. We'll hear the Addicts boss Nathan Jones look ahead to that game himself. We're going to hear from Stephen Downs from the West Yorkshire Football Show as well. I spoke to him last night and we had a really good chat about how the Terriers have been getting on. But in the first half of the show, a bit more of an open discussion. We've got a couple of clips from the press day to talk about. Sort of Nathan Jones was sort of asked to assess the lay of the land at the moment, where Charlton are, how far off the playoffs, that sort of thing, where he thinks they can improve. Also, we can have a good giggle at his red card against Bromley in the well, they've changed the name of that trophy to something else now. In what was the Bristols, and they've literally changed it to something this morning, and I've forgotten what it is already. But there's too many names to that competition. But we'll look back at that game briefly. Hear what Nathan Jones made of his red card in that game as well. Massive good evening as well to everyone who's joining us live on YouTube. Dudley's in there, says much better last weekend, no stress, positives to take, a clean sheet, and we didn't lose. All hell let loose did point out that we didn't have a single shot either in the international break. I mean, it was a surprise. I mean, last time we were on the show, we weren't expecting to have a week off, but Thierry Small getting called up to the England under-20s when he's been struggling to get into our side was a bit of a turn-up for the books. But yeah, well done to all of our players who got off on international duty. Hope they had a good time. So we had the Peterborough game off, which means we're now back in action this Saturday against Huddersfield. So it's been a weird few weeks. The lack of wins in the league is starting to become a bit of a concern. We're sitting in 13th in League One on 19 points. Lincoln, who's sitting 6th, are on 26 points. So we're already 7 points behind the playoffs. We do have a game in hand on Lincoln, although some of the sides, Mansfield above us, have played one fewer than us, so it sort of evens out. So Nathan Jones was asked earlier on today, just to sort of assess when does the gap between where the Addicts are and the playoffs start to become a concern.
There's 2/3 of the season to go, and as I said, we've really been hampered by injuries, which is sort of curtailed a bit of momentum, really. But what we have to do is make sure that a gap doesn't. But then we have to put wins and runs together, that you close it, and then you gather momentum, you gather a bit of confidence in terms of stuff, and that's what we have to do. But look, we can't cry about certain stuff that we've shown that we can be an excellent side. There's so many good things. When we started at Portsmouth, and we were outstanding in beating the Championship side. We won the first 3 games. We've pretty much won 90% of our cup games in terms of stuff. We're the only team to beat Birmingham. All these things, show that there's a real good side in there, but it's been a little bit disjointed. So that's up to me to bring that together. And once we bring it together and we have everyone firing and everyone confident, then look, we'll be the side we want to be.
There we go. So Nathan speaking to Richard Corley earlier on today. I had to cut Richard's bit out because I know he can't be bothered to turn up to these press conferences anyway. But the audio was so bad today. But basically, was just asking about when does that gap become a problem for you, Ben? Yeah, I mean Ed's saying evening team. Where do I get my false optimism from? Only Charlton. Well, yeah. I mean, are you still full of false optimism yourself, Ben?
Well, I get what Ed's saying. When you have 2 weeks off, you kind of do get that Charlton feeling that the good times are going to come back.
Absence makes the heart go fonder, doesn't it? Yeah, and somehow
definitely
makes us a better football team.
Find ourselves looking forward to this Huddersfield game, where look, I'm looking at these. We've got a big 10 days coming up now. We've got a tough away game against the side who should be up there after they've come down from the Championship last season. And then you look at the games after that, we've got Burton away and Crawley at home in the league, that is. I'm forgetting about the Walsall FA Cup game. And you think, I honestly now look at it and I think this is kind of a season-defining 10 days coming up. And that might sound dramatic, but I just think because of what's gone on in previous seasons with us, with this kind of spell around this time, we know late December has so many games, and the last couple of seasons we've got to that point and we've had nothing to play for, and we're crying out for January window, and then we've got there and thought, well, actually, is it going to make too much of a difference? Because it doesn't seem like we're fighting for anything. So I think, look, obviously this year it's a different time. Nathan Jones, like, he'll be given time and for these new signings and his style of play to bed in. I get that, but because of what we've seen over the last few seasons, I think we're all quite wary of it the same happening, and that false optimism literally just going out the window. And we have had some difficult games, the likes of Stockport, the likes of Wrexham, and Birmingham in that as well, and Barnsley away and stuff like that. But I'm looking at these next few games, especially the Crawley game and the Burton game. I know this weekend will be a difficult one, but thinking we've got to get 7 points from it, in my opinion, to really get up there. And last week missing that game, I think that's probably going to help us, because we've had some players that might be fit for this weekend, and especially now that we've got a lot of games coming up that can really help us in this fixture schedule now.
Yeah. What do you think that the 2 weeks off will have done to sort of the mentality of the side, Tom? I was just thinking, like, when you've had the run that we've had in terms of not picking up league wins, I mean, we can't skirt around that fact that it's 2-11. Has the break come at a good time? I'm just looking at the last three performances. Exeter had its moments, like we had a couple of chances second half, but overall, a bit disappointing. Wrexham, weirdly, this is league games I'm talking about. Wrexham obviously had that great moment at the end, but I didn't think we played very well. And similar with Barnsley, really had a couple of great moments near the end, but then an even worse one after. I mean, did the break almost come at the right time in the end for us?
I don't think we'll really know until we see how we play this weekend. But I think what I'm looking at the moment is it's a chance to reset. And it feels like there's been so many seasons where we don't play very well, but we maybe scrape results, and then slowly we scrape points less and less and less. But because the games keep coming, and because you're so used to seeing it, you kind of don't really realise you're almost getting worse by stealth. And then before you know it, you've gone on a 20-game unbeaten run, and Appleton's getting booed off down the touchline. And I think we were perhaps in danger of that happening. If we'd have played the Peterborough game, maybe scraped a draw or got a narrow loss, gone straight into another game this weekend, same again. Suddenly you get towards Christmas and we haven't won a league game in 2-3 months, and suddenly it's like, well, where does Nathan Jones sit? Now, of course, that could still happen, but we have had a chance to just reset all of that. As Benji says, it then changes your expectation because you've had a week off watching terrible internationals instead, or not even bothering, and so you come back and you're just nice that Charlton are back. But I do think it's a chance for that. It's a chance to get some players back fit. I know he was a bit cagey about it, as he always is, but those little things, it's just that little, almost like a midwinter break, isn't it? It's just come early. So I'm glad we've had the break. I think that's better off than not. I'm not going to say we're going to be completely transformed yet, but I think it's given him hopefully a bit of a break. I saw Benji said in our little private chat there that he looks different, and he does. He looks a little bit more energised and a little bit, I don't know, maybe he's got that spark back. So yeah, we've had a tough run in the league. We've had a bit of time off. And so hopefully we can try and kick on from here. Because as Benji says, we've got a couple of what we would deem winnable games. We're also playing 3 of the teams around that 6th place, I think, aren't we? In Mansfield and Lincoln, weren't it? And Huddersfield. So you take points off all 3 of them, you're making points up towards the teams we're trying to catch. So still a hell of a lot to play for. But as Benji says, the next 3 or 4 weeks are massive now for our season.
Yeah, and there's a good point by all hell loose. With Connor Coventry got called up really late for the Ireland squad. So if we hadn't had Thierry Small called up, then we wouldn't have been able to call it off. I think Exeter had the same problem where they had a player who was on a reserve list get called up, and they ended up losing those players, and I think they had to settle for a draw against Lincoln. I just wanted to, Nathan was asked about the points and the gap behind the playoffs. I wonder how much that plays into the psychology of a season. Ben, obviously everyone knows I love to focus on the graph and what that sort of means for us. It's probably a bit small on the screen, but basically on our current points per game ratio for the season, we're only going to hit about 62. So in terms of the points we've picked up recently, you can see on the red line of recent games that we're not really going at a points per game ratio that would take us towards that playoff place. How much do you think you can concentrate on little things like this, or will that gap to the playoffs, as I said earlier, was it 7 points currently with a game in hand? How much will that sort of affect the psychology if it makes it look like a bigger ask?
Well, I was thinking there, it depends how Nathan's brought these players into the club. If he's brought these players in saying, look, we're getting in the playoffs this season, we're going up, we need and setting targets, whereas these players now feel like they're underachieving with it, then their mentality might be all wrong and they're going into games feeling like there's a lot of pressure going into them. Whereas if they feel like, well, actually, look, this is a massive building work we've got to do with the squad. We finished 16th last season. We got it defensively right, and we're going to build from the back slowly. We might not score goals. We might not have many shots, but we're trying to build from the back. Then, yeah, look, it's tricky to see as fans. We obviously are fed up of this league and we want to be out of it. Nathan's obviously come in towards February last season and done really well, done well with us and kept us up where we were really struggling. And yeah, I'm just looking at last season, and this was around the time of the year. I think we beat Charlton at home 28th of November, and then from then we didn't win another game till February the 3rd away to Derby. Sorry, that was the home game. Sorry, it was worse than that. It was February the 27th. We then won our next game. So yeah, as I said before, I think we are cautious of fans that because we're not really seeing the performances whenever we've won. Well, and whenever we've lost, to be fair, it has been by fine margins. And I think we're going into this weekend, we're kind of fed up of hearing the same things, really, like the basics and hearing how good Huddersfield are, and they're a well-drilled side. So let's look at the positives of our side and think, that's what I think, like going back to your question, I think we need to try and focus on the positives we've got in our side. What can we do in games rather than looking at our injuries and saying we're without them? Because the players are probably looking around going, oh yeah, we are without Chuks. We can't bring him on. Oh yeah, we are without Lloyd. He has been really good for us. We need to focus on, because as we've said before, I think we said after the Exeter game, this team on paper is good. I mean, teams apart from Birmingham would cry out for a front two of Godden and Leeburn up front. But as we know, we're just not feeding them. We're bypassing the midfield. We're losing out. So yeah, look, if we can go into this game with just a change of mentality, as Tom said, a bit of a refresh, a change of mentality, some players coming back, and then we have got a few easier fixtures where we can assert our dominance, where we can try and change your graph around and start looking positively at things. But as fans, we're going there really with this mindset at the moment. It's tough to see that because we're not seeing it on the pitch.
Well, you mentioned there the inability, I guess, so far this season to score goals. Well, Nathan Jones was asked about that earlier on today. Charlton got a good defensive record, but up top it's just not working. How is he going to make that click?
It's a good point, and I don't think we're anywhere near yet. I don't think we've hit the ground running yet in terms of our performances. We've won games. I think we've been excellent in the Birmingham game, the Bolton game, Portsmouth early on. I think at spells against Stockport we were very, very good. But I don't really think we've really seen anywhere near the best of us yet. And it's frustrating in certain ways, but also quite exciting to that when we do click, when we do get everyone back, when we are firing, then look, we will be considerably better. I think in parts of games we've been excellent, in parts of games we've been poor. There hasn't really been that consistency over a long period of time. And once we get that, once we add that, then look, we're going to be a force. It's just about making sure, because we've had some big injuries. We've had 10 players unavailable, and there's not many teams in this division could cope with that. But what we've done is we've managed to stick in. We've only lost 1 in 8. We aren't winning enough league games, which is the thing we want to address. But what we have to do is make sure we stay in and around it. Then when we get everyone back and we have this run of fixtures, then we can capitalise on that. But the underlying thing for me is I think we've done okay in lots of games, but there's so much more to come from this squad, so much more to come from this team, and that's the thing that's exciting.
Is that something that fills you with hope, Tom, that there's still a lot more to come, or is it, well, we're 14 league games in, so a third of the season nearly. Should we have seen it by now?
Yeah, I mean, if we see it, it's exciting, right? Because as Benji says, we know what this team's potential is, but the fact we haven't, I think it's more concerning that we haven't seen it already, as opposed to exciting suggests we know it's coming, and we haven't seen it yet. And I think we're far enough into the season where we should have seen it at least somewhere, and I don't think we have. We keep referencing that Stockport game as the one game where we sort of clicked, but even then we only scored one goal, and it wasn't like we blew them off the park. So I admire his optimism. I always try and be pretty positive on this show as well. As I say, if we see it, then fair enough. You can go, okay, yeah, this is the team we want. But at the same time, as Benji says, we're so fed up of this league and we're so desperate to get out that I don't think that would blow me away necessarily anyway in terms of excitement, because it's what I expect from them. You know, these players should be delivering that. I'm not saying we should be beating everyone 5-0 every week, but we should be putting in performances better than we have been. There should be more creativity in that midfield. There should be more goals coming from up top. And there's obviously a number of reasons why it's not happening, and we've tried to pick those out week on week as we've lost games or not won games. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm going into Saturday's game full of excitement, because the team haven't given me any reason to yet. I'd love to feel that way. And as I say, if they do get a couple of wins, you can start to feel that way, and then the momentum builds. But I think it's bold to say that until really we've started to show that that's what we're capable of. Because at the moment, on the pitch, I don't feel like we have.
Yeah, I mean, George is saying that unless we get a couple of players back by Saturday, we could be in big trouble. I mean, it does feel like a difficult game going up to Huddersfield on Saturday. I mean, David's saying we need to win our next two or the season will be over by Christmas. I mean, we're certainly not far off that sort of situation, unless, as we sort of spoke about the last Sunday, about we would have to go on one hell of a run, which we're not convinced that we've shown we're fully capable of. I mean, looking at in terms of what would happen for the rest of the season, I mean, Ed's asked a good question there, Ben. I mean, do you invest in the team come January if we're off the playoff places? So I mean, if we are, you know, and we currently are not really still as close to the hunt as we would want, perhaps would they invest at this stage? I mean, 76 Rufus asked, do we even have any money to spend in January? Is it throwing good money after bad when they can wait to invest in the summer? I feel like we have this conversation every season.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we're talking about, that's why I think this month, well, next couple of weeks are so crucial, because we keep seeing it year on, year out. Ben Garner, Michael Appleton, it's just the same kind of theme that we're running around. But yeah, look, I mean, if the board, we seem like we got a proper board structure now where they are going to back the manager. And look, I'm kind of in the camp that I would back the manager. It depends how many points we're off the playoffs. I mean, if we're 6 points off, I don't think that's too bad. I mean, if we're hovering around 8th, 9th, 10th, I mean, if we look at last season, I don't think that's too bad. And look, we know where we got we as fans would see a player like a Corey Blackett-Taylor, someone who picks up the ball and drives us forward and takes us forward as a team and runs at pace and scares the defence. I think we look at that as fans and go, that's what we're missing. I'm not sure if Nathan looks at that, because obviously he didn't get anyone in like that in the summer, and that wasn't a crucial position for him. So who knows? But and yeah, look, we need another centre back, in my opinion. Gillespie has looked shaky, and when Mitchell and Jones are together, they look a good pair. Do we invest in that in January if we're too far away? I'd hope so, because then come the summer, I don't want to sign in another 10 or 12 players and us then talking now going, oh yeah, these players are still trying to bed in, because the likes of Kane Ramsey, who we signed in January last season, has bedded in and he has looked a good signing. Gillespie, I think he's done all right this season. I know he's come in for a bit of criticism lately, but I think we were saying in the first, 8, 9, 10 pods of the season that actually he's done better than we thought he would, compared. So there are, small, he's kind of been a bit hit and miss, but some players like that. Connor Coventry's now looking good. So some players that we have signed in January have now become part of our squad and are looking good signings. I think there's no point scrambling about for loans and trying to shoot us up the table in a massive panic, because I don't think that helps. But yeah, look, the injuries are a part, definitely. I mean, we are missing some key players, but as I said, and I know all hell let loose said to me, it's not one on paper, but it's like, how do we get the best out of this side? And I really hope Nathan's right and we will see the best of this side. But so far, we're scratching our heads, especially away from home. We're scratching our heads going, well, when will we see it? And because we've got a lot of games coming up now, we need to see the proof in the pudding, don't we?
Yeah, Paul Glover's asking if our expectations are too high. Is it a 2 or 3 year project? So I always get very touchy when someone suggests that our expectations could be too high, because we're Charlton in League One. Tom, that it comes with the territory that we expect to be doing better, and I think 4th highest wage budget or whatever it is. These things all drive the expectations of the fans.
Yeah, totally. I see the point. But I don't think we're being greedy here. Like, we've had to suffer a lot in recent years. And I know lots of clubs do. But as you say, when you get the promises that the various owners we've had in recent years have made, when you see the investment that some of the owners have made, then I think we should be performing better. Often it comes down largely to wage budgets in the league. There's obviously the odd difference and the odd surprise, but largely that's how the table should play out. And so if it doesn't, and you're one of the higher wage earners or budget spenders or whatever, and you're not finishing in the top sort of 6 places, that kind of speaks for itself. You're under delivering. So I don't think necessarily our expectations are too high. I would argue that Charlton have under delivered now for 3 or 4 consecutive years. Does that mean that we have every right to be in the Championship? Absolutely not. We need to earn our way out of this league. But based on the players we've had in these squads, based on some of the managers we've had, based on a lot of our history, which is less important, I appreciate, but still a big factor, there is no way we should be spending this long at this level of football. And what's harder the seasons that go past is when big teams have found their way down here, like in Ipswich, or going way further back, Sheffield Wednesdays that have been down here with us, the Leedses, Norwiches, most of them have then found a way back up and out of it. And obviously, like Huddersfield are back here now, and we've had times with them, obviously, that season where they won about 450 games unbeaten and then we beat them. I know that happens, and some teams find their way down. But largely, teams are finding a way out of this league, and most times they're then kicking on. I know Portsmouth may be a bad example from last season. So I don't think we are being unreasonable at all. I think we should expect more from this squad. I do think they're under-delivering at the moment. I also think they're capable of better. And so when we're thinking about it, that's probably what we're judging them against. And they're not doing enough of that at the moment.
Ed's saying he thinks that Nathan Jones has set expectations higher than a 2-3 year project. And Andrew pointing out, in 2-3 years, Leeburn could be gone and Gordon will be passing. You start again. That's a danger with trying to set a 2 or 3 year project at our level. Is there's such a high level of turnover of playing staff that you rip it up and start again almost every year. It feels like. Yeah, frustrating. As all hell let loose points out. Team fans were expecting top 6 rather than top 2, but again, I think that's relatively a fair expectation from fans. I mean, Robin's asking what position are we in the budget spending league. So like I say, I mean, Charlie Mevin said himself, I think in top 4 in terms of wages, and that's roughly where we've been pretty much every year, even under Sandgaard, when even when Garner and Sandgaard were having their public disputes about what the budget was and how much of it was being spent and that sort of stuff. We're always going to be top 6 in terms of wages. It's why is that never translated into what it should be on the field of play. Lucas saying that you can only demand of those who can deliver. Charlton is surely supposed to deliver at least the playoffs. Right, one other thing that did happen during the international break, obviously, was El Clasico, Charlton against Bromley in the Virtue Cup, it's called now, but at the time it was called the Bristol, so whatever you want to call it. We won 1-0. Miles Lieberman with a deflected strike, I think it was in the second half. To be honest, the only thing I can remember from that game is Nathan Jones's red card. So the ball was coming towards the touchline. Nathan Jones stuck his foot out. There was no one anywhere near him, but he touched the ball. I've seen an angle that says to me maybe it was slightly on the pitch, but really was a red card worthy for that? Well, this is what Nathan Jones thought of the decision.
Red card against Bromley in unusual fashion. You won't face any further action for that. Was that a bit of a relief when that news came through?
Well, I felt it's very difficult for me to comment because I felt it was an extremely bizarre decision. I understand that they think that if it didn't leave the pitch, but I was clearly stood in my technical area, the ball was coming towards me, I put my foot up to stop it and was sent off for that. Now, it didn't have any effect on the game whatsoever. There was no players anywhere near me. The ball was hurtling out at considerable speed, so it had no effect on the game. So it was a real bizarre sending off. I was embarrassed, if I'm honest, by it, but that's what happens now. But there's a lot of things frustrate me in football, and there's so much emphasis now on the minor little details that they don't really mean a hell of a lot, and then big decisions are getting missed. We've had some injuries to players for bad tackles that don't get picked up, and that's the frustration for me. Look, I'm glad that there's no more thing, because no more, and that it's been rescinded, if you like, and think, because I felt it was a very bizarre decision and felt it was very unnecessary and totally not in the spirit of how that game was played.
Yeah, it wasn't in the spirit of the game. It was a game played with no malice at all. All our friends getting together and having a lovely game of Bristol's. Ben, and obviously the most important thing about that red card was it was really funny.
Yeah, it brought to life a pretty dull game, didn't it? The one thing I did like was our goal, and I'm not going to say it was an amazing goal, but we actually had a shot outside the area. So that was lovely to see, because it's pretty rare. And it had a deflection, and it just goes to show, if you shoot, you never know what can happen. You never know what coming off someone's bum or the keeper miss it or whatever. I mean, we are 21st in the league right now for shots per game. We are 21st for 10 shots per game we are averaging. So that is pretty dreadful right now. So, and we're seeing it. We're not sat here going, oh yeah, but we're winning 1-0, Ben, so that's all right. We're not having, we look at the chances. I mean, we sat here after the exit of the game, saw Godden's miss, saw Alex Mitchell's miss, and thought, do you know what, if they would have went in? But because the chances we have are so few and far between, can't really, I mean, that's the first game Godden, is that you can actually turn around and go, do you know what, he's had a few chances that could have actually won us a game, but because before he's only having 1 or 2 chances. So for Leeburn to take the game by a scruff of the neck and go edge of the box, give us the ball, bang, oh well, it's come off deflection, but it's gone in. I mean, that's good. That'll do his confidence world of good, and just hopefully, I just hope we, as a side, we just kind of look and just take a few more shots, take a few more chances, because yeah, that brought to life a pretty dull game. Apart from that youngster Enslin who looked really lively, and that's the kind of game, yeah, where it's nice to see these players because it means something to them. The rest of them, I think it kind of, the game passed them by. I know we were already through, but at least he got minutes into the legs. But yeah, you want to see a bit more from these players, a bit of hunger, and that they can take this form into league games where, as we said, they're coming up. They'll be crucial games.
Yeah, sorry, the cat's broken in for everyone watching on YouTube. That was I just heard someone banging on the door, and I was like, "What the hell's going on here?" It was just Solly, the cat, who's come to join us. I mean, the performance again against Bromley, I don't know how much of it you actually watched, to be honest, Tom, because it's not the most entertaining competition. But I don't know how much you. I don't tend to read too much into those games, but you know, something like if we went and won 5-0 and played liquid football, then I'll come away feeling a bit happier than the sort of display we've had at times this season, and it wasn't one of those ones that set hairs racing, thinking, "Oh, great, we're back in the big time. We've smashed Bromley. Let's take that back into the league."
Yeah, I watched none of it, but I totally agree with you. I do think, and I know I've been very cynical and critical of it in recent shows. One of the games I even forgot was happening. But I do think there are elements of it that are positive around things like youngsters getting their game time and getting that opportunity, because as Benji says, it does mean something to them and it is an opportunity for them. And we've seen players start in that competition and then kick on and get performances in the league as well. But going back to everything we've spoken about so far around expectations and around feeling amongst the fan base, realistically, if we win that trophy but we don't get promoted, are we going to be that happy with this season? I don't think we are. So when you're looking at it, and that goes back to Nathan Jones's comments about, results, etc. That's why I think it's really important that when we're coming on this show, we are focusing on our run in the league and how many games we've won in the league, because that's our bread and butter. That's the one that we all care about most. I can't speak for everybody, but I think the majority of people. And we need to get promoted and out of this division. And in doing that, we wouldn't even be in this competition anymore. Would anybody complain? I don't think they would. I think the youngsters would still get their chance in the League Cup and the FA Cup. So, no, look, there are positives to take from a game like that. Obviously, it's always better to win than lose. Although, again, I don't think I said that on a recent show. But we'll get another round. The youngsters will get more opportunity. That's fine. I think if you're winning games, it can maybe help momentum as well. But when you're in a bad run, we haven't seen that translate into the league fixtures, have we? Because we've gone through in that competition and not lost a game, and yet the league run has been poor. So that has to be the focus. And so I don't read much into it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, as all hell let loose points out, no further action is going to be taken by the EFL. So is that a slap in the face for the ref? I don't know. Probably it was a strange decision, wasn't it? The red card. I think a yellow card would have been fair, because if Nathan has drifted into play, which I think he might have just about done, but again, we don't have VAR and it probably wouldn't be necessary for that. Then it probably is a yellow card, but a red card for that, it affected nothing. It was very, very strange. Right, let's have a break. When we come back, we will turn our attention to Saturday's trip up to Huddersfield Town.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders, such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the river. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview. I can't get shot of this cat. She's just she's going to be watching the show from close quarters now for the rest of the show. Paul says Louis' cat is showing more intent than some of the players. Well, she's man marking me very well, actually. Would have got a job in our defence last season, certainly. Right, just a couple of notices. Don't forget, Christmas coming up now. Check out our merch or charltonlive.etsy.com. I noticed on Twitter earlier on today that Mark Anderson has been gifted one and he's opened it early already. When you're given a gift of that quality, you can't just leave it in the box and you've got to get it out there, and he's enjoying a brew in it as we speak, I'm sure. So yeah, charltonlive.etsy.com if you want a Charlton Live mug for Christmas, either for you or for the person you love the most in the world, because I can tell you deep down now that is what they want for Christmas. As well, we've been invited to watch the final of the Copa Sudamericana this weekend by Lucas, because Cruzeiro are in it, the team that he gave me a mug and a shirt from. So make sure you check that out on Sunday if you want to see a final, which is the first final we're going to get to watch until obviously we get to the final of the Virtue Cup or whatever it's called that we're in. Right, let's turn our attention to Saturday, heading up to Huddersfield Town, freshly relegated from the Championship last season. The Terriers sitting 8th in League One. We are going to try and tame the Terriers on Saturday. Little throwback there for everyone who got wound up by a tweet a few years ago, although we did end up losing 4-0 in that game. Our last 2 trips there, we've lost 5-0 and 4-0, I believe, or that certainly happened in our last few trips. So something to look forward to as we return to the John Smith Stadium on Saturday. I caught up with Steve Downs from the West Yorkshire Football Show last night, just to have a quick look ahead to the game from a Huddersfield point of view. Delighted to say that we're now joined by Stephen Downs from the West Yorkshire Football Show to look ahead to Saturday's trip up to Huddersfield Town. Stefan, thank you for your time. How would you sort of assess the start to the season for the Terriers so far? Sitting in 8th, I guess you've got pretty high expectations for this term.
Yeah, it's been a rocky season so far, really, ups and downs. We started the season on fire coming out of pre-season, had a really good pre-season under Michael Duff, who had taken over in the summer. Pretty turbulent into last season, obviously getting relegated. Michael Duff came in, ex-Barnsley and Swansea manager, sort of backed the tide, as it were, and got us more on a stable footing. Pre-season was really good. Came into the season absolutely flying, beat Peterborough, beat Stevenage, beat... who else started seeing? Beat a few teams anyway down there. Shrewsbury as well. And then we went through a sticky patch, and we lost a couple of games and went on a winless run of 5, actually, if you include the, I call it the crap cup, in terms of the Bristol Street Motors. And then we beat Bolton 4-0. After the international break, and everything was supposed to be rosy again. And kind of since then, it's been up and down. We've obviously gone out of the FA Cup to Tamworth. And so that was, a bit of an embarrassing weekend, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, 8th position, we would expect to be higher than that. We'd hope to be higher than that so far. But hopefully, as the season goes on, we'll gather more wins. We need to go on a bit of a run now, though. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'd say it's still pretty tight, isn't it, for those playoff places? The top 2 are threatening to pull away from those of us who are sort of struggling in mid-table. And I think that's very generous of me to try and group myself with Huddersfield there, actually, for Charlton. But yeah, I mean, from what you've seen so far this season, do you think there is enough in your side to make a sort of concerted push for the playoffs?
If they play like we know they can play, then yeah, we'll be in the playoffs. But unfortunately, over the time that Michael's been in charge so far, and I really like Michael. I think he's a good manager. But we've had some disappointing results and disappointing performances in the style of football that he likes to play with a 3-5-2 system. We've had quite a number of injuries to what you would say key players. So he's never been able to really get a consistent side going. We've had Lee Nichols out, we've had Michael Hellick out, we've had Lasse Sorensen out now. So, we came into the division and we kept most of the squad together, whether that's because people just didn't want a relegated player or the fact that, we did well to keep hold on to some of them, like I say, with Nichols and Hellick and people like that. But that meant that the players that we brought in, we brought in some quality. Lasse Sorensen and Evans from Bristol Rovers being 2 of the better players in League One at their respected sides. So, mid-table, like you say, is at the moment, it can go either way because it's so tight. There's about 12, 13 teams, isn't there, where, you could lose 2 games and suddenly be 10th, or win 2 games and suddenly be back 4th, and 3rd or 4th. Like I said, the top 2, I think Birmingham, we all know that, with their billions of pounds that they've spent, if they don't go up, then it's an absolute travesty. One side that surprised me a bit so far is Wycombe. I think they've done really well, scored a lot of goals. Probably surprised a little bit about you boys not being as higher up as what you would expect, although you have got the little angry man in charge that, as soon as any job comes up, he wants to be away. So that doesn't surprise me in one sense. And also, you mucked us about with Alfie May, so thanks very much for that. I don't think I'll ever forget Charlton for doing that.
Yeah, sorry for that. That was more Birmingham's fault as well, to be fair. But we won't go into that one.
You share responsibility for it. I blame you both. Don't worry about that.
We washed our hands of Alfie, unfortunately, and that's backfired a little bit, to be fair. You mentioned Michael Duff. Were you pleased? You sound like you're quite pleased with him. Were you excited when he came in? Obviously, had success with Cheltenham, got Barnsley to a playoff final. Didn't go great at Swansea, but the Swansea can be one of those clubs where things don't work out quite quickly. What have you made of his start? And were you excited when you first got linked with him?
Yeah, I think, listen, because of the managers that we've recently had, Brian Reiter was an unknown German, Darren Moore didn't work out. Obviously, Neil Warnock is Neil Warnock, and we've had a few other terrible managers in between, really. Mark Fotheringham hasn't worked, and we've had other people out internally in the club that's come to the fore. Danny Schofield, an ex-player who, it was difficult for him. So I think Michael, he's a kind of a head coach that knows what he's doing. He knows he's been in this division. He knows how to build a team and get to the playoffs, not necessarily get up, although I think they were robbed in the playoff final against Sheffield Wednesday. I like his style, kind of says it as it is, no nonsense. When we've had a rubbish performance, he says we've had a rubbish performance. And he knows that the fans expect. I think what he kind of likes about Town is that it's very similar to when he went into Barnsley, although there's slightly more pressure, I would say, here because he had to sell a load of players at Barnsley, where he hasn't necessarily had to do that here. But he does like the process of rebuilding a club. Swansea was different. I think we all accept, or any football fan accepts, that Swansea play a certain way and have done since the last 20 years, really, ever since they had Martinez all them years ago. So they like to play a certain way, and if you don't suit that as a manager, it just doesn't work. And I think, the Swansea fans are a bit of a fan base that they can see straight away, if a manager's not made for them. Where at Charlton he learned his trade. Barnsley's a lot like Huddersfield in terms of the area, the type of people up here, the honest, hard-working, what we want to see out of our teams, working class backgrounds, and honesty on the football pitch. And I think he sort of embodies all that, really.
And you mentioned you were able to keep large swathes of your squad together after coming down last year. But who are the sort of players that have stood out for you so far this season?
Well, we've obviously got a very experienced defence with Michael Hellick coming back from injury. We got Matty Pearson, who didn't start the season, ironically, but has fought his way back into the team. Tom Lees is very experienced at any level of football, particularly Championship and definitely a League One. So we've got quite a stable, steady defence. Really, if you look at the statistics, we don't concede a lot of goals. We just don't score enough. That's our problem. The midfield hasn't really worked in a lot of games, but it is a difficult system to get hold of. There's a lot of pressure put on the midfield where they have to do a lot of intensive work, getting forward up the pitch and getting back in the system that Duff plays. And we haven't worked out front two, really. There's been different people. There's been Bojan Radulovic, Finnish. He's Serbian, but he played in the Finnish league last year on plastic pitches, so he's had to get used to British football. Danny Ward is an old stager, of course. Charlton fans may remember him, but the trouble with Danny is he's getting towards Christmas and he don't mind Christmas off, so he's been injured slightly at the moment. Freddie Ladapo's come from Ipswich, a player that we were tracking all summer. Don't believe everything that you read, by the way.
He played for us last year, so we know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. Hopefully, the ghost of Freddie Ladapo from you boys will come back and haunt you, and he'll score an hat-trick. Who else we got up there? Josh Caroma's come back from injury. He's probably the one where, if we're likely to score and get a goal, I would say that Josh is probably the guy to do it. And I think he's a London lad. He's played down there for Leyton Orient and such, so some Charlton fans might remember his time down there, but obviously we're on loan at Pomper a couple of seasons ago as well.
Yeah, excellent. And just finally, what sort of game are you expecting on Saturday then? So you mentioned you're not the highest scorers but don't concede many, which is very similar to what we like to get up to on a Saturday. So how do you see it going this weekend?
No, isn't it? We're all in for a treat, aren't we, on this cold November weekend? No, I think listen, it's going to be a hard game. Charlton's never easy. I remember we've had some right battles over the years, haven't we? I remember what was it? Dale Stevens. He nearly broke Adam Hamill's leg a couple of years back. So it's always a tough game. I remember one year we scored very late on with, I think, Matty Daly to win 2-1. So listen, it's going to be a hard game. The Charlton, you lads are obviously wanting to do well. I don't really know kind of what you guys think of the gaffer in charge at your place now. I think there's mixed responses. So, I don't know how the atmosphere is going to be, particularly if we do turn up and we start winning, 2-0 or something like that. I just hope that we put a consistent performance on and we get back to, trying to play the way that we want to play and what Duff wants to do. I think it would be a major boost for us if we could come down there and get a win, really. Because then we've got, tough games after that, Leyton Orient, and then obviously you're into the run to Christmas where you're kind of playing Tuesday, Saturday, aren't you? So, we need to pick up points now. This is the point. We need it's time to wake up, smell the coffee, get up the league, and start sorting some teams out from the wheat from the chaff, really.
There you go. That's Stephen from the West Yorkshire Football Show. Massive thanks to him for joining me last night to look ahead to Saturday's game, which is up at Huddersfield, despite what Stephen seems to think there at the end. Unless he's all about coming down from further up north to play at Huddersfield. But the game is away. I'll be looking at the weather forecast as well because they've had a bit of snow. But Saturday is saying it's going to be 13 degrees, so presumably we'll be all right. My guess is it will just rain because that's what it's done every time I've been to Huddersfield ever, and I've been there 5 or 6 times. He seemed to just sit there listing names of players, Ben, who have at some point scored against us in the past. He even said Danny Ward, who I think scored against us for Swindon in the playoffs in about 2010. He's still knocking about, coming back to try and get another one over us. Tough game on Saturday. I think. I hope I'm not being controversial here when I say I think Huddersfield will probably go into this game as favourites.
Oh yeah, definitely. I checked on Sky Bet. We're over 3-1 to win the game, and we just went to Exeter and lost, and deservedly lost, really. But yeah, no, I remember that game with Dale Stevens. I was with you, wasn't I? Your favourite player scored the winner. It was FA Cup round, wasn't it?
Oh, Churchy, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a dreadful tackle by Dale Stevens. We were lucky there, but yeah, he was confusing there because he said about how we're a tough battle, but you were right earlier. I looked, our last 2 games there, we lost 4-0 and 5-0. So yeah, last few years, I say they've been up there a long time. I was quite surprised. This is for them being in League One is quite a shock for them, really, because they've been yo-yoed for a few years between the Championship and the Premier League a bit. So. And being quite a well-respectful run Championship side. So, yeah, look, their expectations are they're probably looking at the likes of us thinking we don't want to become a team like Charlton and linger in this league enough times. But, I had a look. That Sorensen's not playing. I remember when we played Lincoln last season, he was so good. I don't know if we were so bad and made him look so good, but obviously Huddersfield coming down from the Championship then went and bought him, but it does look like he's not fit, so that's a relief because that game flipping, I couldn't wait to stop watching that game because he just peppered us, crosses and everything down that right side. So yeah, look, mate, Ladapo, is he going to score? Is he going to come in? Because we had such high prospects. When he came in January, we really thought, as we were talking about a January window earlier, that was going to be him and Alfie up front and could propel us up the table, and it didn't work. But wouldn't it be typical if he come on and scored? But yeah, look, he didn't sound too confident, did he? He said if they play well, if they know how we're going to play, it sounds very similar to us. They've won their last 3 home games in a row, and we're not that great away from home. But I think the key is, if we go behind, that's where we've started games so badly lately. The last few away games where we've had, I just keep thinking of that Barnsley game. But the Exeter game, all right, we're in it. We're going in the second half, and our best spell of pressure came just before they scored. So yeah, I think, obviously the Southend game, which was a nightmare defensively. But yeah, we started well there. We scored our goal, and then I think we rested on our laurels. But I think this game, we've got to go into it. We've got to start well. We've got to mount our pressure. Imagine if we came away from this game with a win. How well would that do for our confidence? And then we got 2 easier games. Then we can work on that. So, Yeah, look, we've got to start well for me. We've got to be in this game, first 10, 20 minutes, assert our dominance on the game, because that hasn't happened lately.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew's saying he'd like to see the midfield perform from the first minute. That's Andrew Roth. Andrew Whiffins mentioning our scintillating away form. It's not been great, has it? Well, I think Nathan Jones addresses that in this little clip. This is the Addicts boss looking ahead to the game up at the John Smith Stadium.
A while since our last league game. How are the squad looking ahead of our next test against Huddersfield?
Well, look, we've been stretched with injuries. We really have. So it was a welcome break, if you like. Obviously, since the last game, we had a Bristol Street Motors a game which gave a lot of people minutes. But look, we've, as you said, it's given us a little bit of respite to try and get people back, or to get some people who were injured to not miss the game.
We had a number of players away on international duty. Have they all come back fit and healthy?
Yeah, look, obviously our two Jamaican boys have been away as they are. Karoy got some minutes, less so with Kahim. And then Thierry and Connor obviously both went away, but Connor's was obviously more local, so we've got him back and he's trained with us for a full week. And then Thierry came back in with us today, so very proud of our internationals, and it's good that they've had that experience, and for Connor as well, and be involved in the game at Wembley against England, and then they're all back and ready to go.
How have you used the international break here at Sparrows Lane?
Well, a bit of everything really, a bit of regeneration. We've given them a little bit of rest. We've worked tactically like we normally would, and then this week has been like a normal week. But what it's given us is a bit of respite, so that we didn't have to go into a game. We haven't picked up more injuries because the game was off. So it's given us that little bit of respite that we were in real need of.
Looking ahead to Saturday, what sort of test will Huddersfield pose? A
very, very potent one. They were an ex-championship club. They've got championship players. One of the ones that will be fancied for promotion, one of the ones that would expect to get promoted with everything they have. So again, one of the sternest tests in the division.
Our form away from home hasn't been as strong as our form at the Valley. Ahead of a run of away games, how do we turn that around?
Well, we have to, because if we want to do anything, we have. As we've been hampered by injuries. It's coincided our poor run away from home, because we started the season with 2 away wins. But that's been, it's coincided with us having injuries to big players and lots of them. So it means that we haven't been able to be as effective in games as we would have liked. So hopefully, if we can manage to continue to bring people back, then our away form will pick up. I mean, we had a very good away form last year, and I want us to get back to that.
Yeah, just 1 point from a possible 12 on the road over the last few weeks. Tom, that of course was the draw at Barnes. We've lost at Exeter last time out. Lost at Stevenage and Bristol Rovers the 2 times before that in League One. Also, we had the Southend game there as mentioned. How do we address the away form then? Because I'm trying to sort of think. So our 2 best performances this season have come in what you could almost argue was an away performance type of game. Against Bolton and against Birmingham, where we give up a lot of possession, but we were quite aggressive, front-footed in terms of pressing, but we didn't have the majority of the ball. That's what we're probably best at? So you'd think that would translate into working away from home, but it obviously hasn't over the last 3 weeks.
But ironically, if you look at the Exeter game, that's kind of what we were doing. They had a lot of possession first half. They had about 30 corners. But at all of those corners, we were defending well. We were doing all that same stuff that we did against Birmingham. Maybe not quite to the same level, but it was the same sort of game plan. And then second half, we start on the front foot and we start playing a little bit better. And then, as Benji says, we concede from a set piece. And even after that, we had chances. So it's very easy to look at that game and talk about it in a way that sounds like we could have got something from it. But being there, we didn't deserve to win the game. So I'm absolutely not saying that. But it's interesting that that's the case. The other games you look at, the Barnsley one, as Benji says, we were obviously a long way behind and managed to scrape back and almost got all 3 points. The Bristol Rovers game was a shambles up until the last 10 minutes. And Stevenage obviously pretty poor as well. So I'm not saying that's been the case all the time. But it goes back to what we've been saying. We're showing glimpses, but going back to Nathan Jones's point about the excitement of what we're capable of, well, we just haven't shown that enough. So in answer to your question, we need to do all of it, and we need to do it all for 90 minutes. We need to be defensively strong, and we can't have any lapse in concentration. We need the midfield to actually turn up, as a couple of people in the chat have said. And ultimately, we need to score goals, and that's the problem as well. So there's so much that isn't clicking across the team, and it's all right for little bits of it to click at parts of games, but that's not going to win you them, not in this league. So we just need to all come together and all perform for 90 minutes.
Joseph has said in the chat that we just hope we get the basis right before correcting himself to basics. I mean, I'm just struggling as a fan base. We can't even get our comments right now. We can't even get the basics right as a fan base. But yeah, no, I know what he means. I mean, team news questions. All hell let loose asking about the right back, Reg, Mitchell, or a Simway. Joseph saying he'd like to see Reg. Dudley saying he'd like to see Reg. Mickey saying it's a no-brainer to put a Simway there. Andrew Ross saying Reg. There are sort of team selection headaches with the injuries. So Nathan has hinted that players will be back, or a player might be back. I mean, fully guessing, I'm hoping it's Lloyd Jones, because when you saw him in Sainsbury's, Ben, he said 3 weeks, and that feels like it was about a year ago. So yeah, we need someone back, definitely.
Yeah, after I two-footed him, he did get up and say, actually, I don't think I'm too bad. Then took his boot off and said, I think, I'll be back for the Huddersfield game. So I think he might be back. But yeah, no, we badly need him back. But as I said, because we've got so many games coming up in the next 10 days, I'd hate to see us rush him back and then him limp off of an injury. But I mean, this is the biggest game, probably the hardest test out of the next 4 games. So do you bring him back for a game like this? I agree with the others. I just think with Mitchell, as much as I like him and I think he's a good player and will grow into a good player, I just think when you're a youngster coming through, do you then shove a centre-back in the right-back position and hope you get the best out of him? I just think Reg is quite an experienced player. I thought there was one game when he came on, I think it was probably the game when Tenai went off and he came on, and I thought, all right, you look quite good at right-back, and he was bringing the ball forward. Because I think, you look at Josh Edwards, he's so good at crossing the ball and coming forward. We don't have the balance with the right side there with Mitchell playing there. But, yeah, look, I want Mitchell to get game times, but also I just think a right back, I don't think that's going to really bring the best out of him. And they'll probably look to attack down that side because they'll see he's a youngster with no experience at right back. So, yeah, I'd like to see, I just think a Reg. But I like a Simway, but I think you've just come from Hartlepool on loan, played a couple of Bristol Motors games. Is he really going to be straight in there? Well, then what does Reg think about that if he comes straight in, whereas he hasn't really played a bad game? But yeah, I think the rest of the team, I kind of speak for itself, really. It'll probably be the same as Exeter. And hopefully they've worked on the shape a bit more to create more chances.
Yeah, Murray's saying that box or diamond in the midfield against a 3-5-2 could work. I mean, I'm just looking at that side. I guess the front two probably each the spec will be Leeburn and Godden again. I'm not even going to sit here and try and guess the midfield because we do that every week and it chops and changes every week and we never come away thinking, yeah, great, that's the midfield that's going to win us the league, do we? So, yeah, some decisions for the Addicts boss to make there ahead of Saturday's trip up to Huddersfield. Will be a tough one. Looking forward to going up there, as Inspire You points out. Reg is former Huddersfield, so maybe he'll come and haunt his former side, just like Freddie Ladapo, who seems to be gearing up to do against us on Saturday. Right, we've run out of time. Thanks for everyone who's joined us live on YouTube this evening. I enjoyed your comments as always. It always helps us garner some really good conversation on the show. So I'm really, really grateful to everyone who joins in. I'll see everyone up there at Huddersfield as well on Saturday. If you're heading up there, come and say hello if you're about. Massive thanks to Ben and to Tom. Always an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, chaps.
Lovely stuff. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or wherever you find it so you never miss another episode. So this has been Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. We'll be back on Sunday morning to look back at the game against Huddersfield. We shall see you then.